how you treat us. When I'm talking about that, I'm not talking about treatment at a hospital or a clinic, which is what you want to push like crack. What you're doing right then and there is automatically assuming the guilt and the blame and placing it all on the victim. In addition to blowing them off because they're not a human being to you. Just because I'm an autistic male doesn't mean that women don't still treat me like I'm a male. I'm not attractive though, so I'm treated like an unattractive male. That's fine. If I can avoid women. But I don't get the luxury of that because I'm stuck in public. I don't get the luxury of avoiding business owners because I'm stuck in public. I don't get the luxury of avoiding police officers because I'm stuck in public. Your idea of how to treat autism is that you're going to blame the autistic person for the abuse. And then you're going to insinuate to them that drugs are going to fix it. Kind of like Tourette syndrome. Sure, they have medications. Medications that are liver damaging. Medications that damage the prostate. They got all sorts of medications they can give you for Tourette syndrome that in most cases do not work. And they make us stupid. Not sure if you noticed that, but yeah, when you guys are used to being messed up on pharmaceuticals all the time, you don't recognize how messed up you are. There's also a lot of people that I know who are on medications that make it illegal for them to drive a car. But they still drive a car messed up on their medications on their way to work. Messed up on their medications. How do you treat us? You push us off onto the medical community. Yes, the medical community is going to do something about abuse against us. Sure they are. Look at how many times I've gone to the medical community. They don't do their jobs as mandated reporters. Police don't do their jobs as mandated reporters. You don't care about the abuse. You care about what your friends will think. The way that we are treated by our friends and family is abhorrent. It must be our fault that we were abused. Who did my mom blame for her cocaine habit? She blamed her dad, she blamed my dad, she blamed all of her kids, all of her husbands, all four of them. And of course, y'all pretend that I'm on drugs when it suits you. You don't bother to take a whiz quiz from me to see if I'm on drugs. Just because you said it, it must be true. And then there's the number of times that police officers ask a hospital to inject us with drugs, and they do. They don't listen to us. They seclude us and isolate us for being abused and for trying to turn in our abusers. They push us to the point that we actually attempt suicide over their abuse. I was never locked up for trying to commit suicide. Did you know that? Every time I attempted to do such a thing, I just did it. When I went to these places, I didn't go to them for help committing suicide. I went to them for help stopping the abuse. That includes systemic abuse against disabled and at-risk adults. That is how it works. Every one of these people who took part in this, who works for the federal government or works for any state or local government, they receive your paychecks. They're not doing their jobs, and you don't care. Any excuse that they make is fine. Anything other than looking at the evidence or helping a disabled person to turn it in. You already know that a disabled person is going to be blown off. But if you look at the evidence and you can fucking verify it and you turn it in with them, it is a different ballgame altogether. But no, you're too busy treating us like we're retards. Well, we are victimized out of all of our money. Well, we are beaten on and arrested over and over again for telling on our predators. You tell us it's our fault for telling on our predators. No. It's not our fault that we were abused. And it's not okay to retaliate against someone for speaking up. I spoke up. Natalie and her friends and family made sure that my life was hell. And you goddamn right I spoke up. Now, with all these people who claim that their friends and families' lives were being threatened, who never made a single attempt to turn any of it in, they just wanted to tell me about it. Well, how about you help me to turn it in? How about instead of being angry that you're recorded saying those things on my YouTube channel, how about you fess up to the fact that you never tried to help turn it in? You were too busy talking over me, telling me how to think, telling me how to feel, telling me to ignore it. What is with all the people who want to tell me to ignore abuse by women and telling me that you can't turn in abuse by women? Well, that's not true. You absolutely can. You just can't do it alone. A man does not get the benefit of the doubt. And if that man is homeless or disabled, then everyone has ample excuse that they know they can use. When they don't do right things to that person, they just go, oh, he's mentally ill. And every one of you do it. Every single one of you do it. You play on these bias, and you go out of your way to say and type the meanest things that you possibly can. And then you want to get angry as if I'm an evil person for doing it back. Of course, the difference between you and me is that I won't hide the fact that I did so. I'll admit it loud and proud, and even show evidence that I did so. Because unlike you, I am not a selfish coward. Unlike you, it's not about making a profit. It's about stopping abuse. Unlike you, I don't get to go home at the end of the day. Unlike you, at night, when violence is most likely to happen, I'm stuck out here without property of my own. And by property, I mean land. Because if you have land, then you have rights. But what did it take to prevent me from having land? Well, first of all, you treat me differently. You don't pay me as much as you're going to pay another worker, even if I'm a better worker. Because according to you, I'm a retarded worker, and retarded is worth less. Meanwhile, I'm not allowed to speak up for myself. Well, you'll talk down to me or over me. You'll throw wives' tales and bullshit at me and pretend that that makes it okay. That doesn't make it okay. The cruelty that you give us, especially people like me who aren't on drugs, who aren't out here raping people or beating on people. When I accuse you of something, I'll tell you exactly who I heard it from. I will not hide it. Because you know what? I'm tired of this whole, oh, well, you have to keep the victim's name safe. You have to keep the victim's name safe. Really? What if it's a disabled and at-risk adult who's being victimized by Natalie Bollinger and Ted Bollinger and Tim Beeson and Alicia Bollinger and Matty Boa and a bunch of meth heads? In that case, it's fine for you to look the other way, isn't it? Mandated reporters believe that their job is optional. And then you idiots make excuses for them. You'll spout at me the same lies that they told you. Meanwhile, you never bothered to look up the laws because you're a fucking idiot. Many of you, you want to cite the fact that the law doesn't work, that the law doesn't follow the law. Well, that's because you never try. If you work together, they have to do something. The reason they can't actually do anything about me is why? Because they have to make sure that all of my evidence is past, well, their due dates. What they're not understanding here is that there is no statute of limitations on what they've done to me, and they all know it. All of these professionals in law enforcement know this. Many of the rest of you don't. Or you only remember it when it suits you, but when it's somebody else, you'll spout the same stuff that the cops and the hospitals told you in order to blow you off. Or that your friends and family told you in order to blow you off when you were victimized. Now, when I seize the opportunity to do that to people who did it to me, they play like I'm some sort of a horrible monster. They don't see the monstrosity of them doing such a thing. Meanwhile, none of them are going through anything worse than I am. All of them have friends and family that will help them. See, that's the thing about telling the right slander. The right slander will prevent someone from getting help. Every woman is taught this. See, the way that women treat men, especially autistic men who are different. Oh, he's weird, he's creepy, he's ugly. He must be a serial killer. He must be a rapist. Oh, you're so ugly, you probably have to rape people to get laid. No wonder you can't get a girlfriend. You're a fucking creep. Why the hell are you even projecting it onto me that I even want one? And see, that's the thing. Who I am as a human being doesn't matter. What matters is your bias and assumption and you not having to take any personal responsibility for your actions or decisions. I did things that I was forced to do because I didn't have the options of a pretty white girl. I didn't have the options of a racist black man. I didn't have the options of a police officer. I didn't have the options that a child molester has. That's right. A registered sex offender. If you were to do the things to me, or to do the things to a registered sex offender that you've done to me, it would be considered a hate crime. But if you do it to a homeless person, it alleviates the hate crime, doesn't it? Even if you're using someone's disabilities or lies about their disabilities. Something needs to be done. Those of you who are aware of it who don't come forward, you are the reason that these things happen. The way that you treat us dictates how the professionals treat us. If you're just going to blow us off because you don't care, yeah, they're going to blow us off because they don't care. If you're just going to make excuses, they're just going to make excuses. If you're going to lie about the law, well, so are they. You show how much you care by whether or not you keep your word, by how you treat us. When you assume somebody's guilt because of their gender, because of their religion, because of their nation of origin, because of their skin color, you guys are passing an awful lot of judgment. When you want to pass judgment on me for things that are untrue, I'll pass judgment on you for the things that are. And you can show that you're a neurotypical by lying through your teeth about all of it. And then trying to convince people not to listen to me or look at evidence. Well, guess what, idiots? The evidence is still up, and there's still a lot more I got to post up. And when my physical abilities and mental disabilities allow me to do so, I'm able to work on it. But that comes down to a safe environment, which I haven't had in my lifetime. Whether or not it's a safe environment comes down to not just the trees or the walls or the roof, but also the people there. All the good intentioned words in the world don't stop abuse. Who are you telling them to? Were you telling them to me, or did you tell them to the police? Did you tell them to me, or did you tell them to the media? Did you call the media with me and help to explain it with me so that I can record evidence that it happened? Or am I going to have to just take your word that it happened? Because the police aren't just going to take my word that you exist, and neither are the courts. They're going to use the term mentally ill to pretend that I'm a violent schizophrenic. Meanwhile, that puts me out here with violent schizophrenics. They're just going to pretend that I'm on drugs. So they don't have to listen. And that makes it so that I'm stuck out here with a bunch of drug addicts and alcoholics. But you also get to see, like with Brett Roloff. Yeah, he was in a house. He was still strung out on drugs. What about Tim Beeson, Ted Bollinger, Danica Shell Garner, Rochelle Shelley Campbell? What about Desiree Leonard or Anna Ingersoll? What about Teresa Orn? What about Shannon Alvarado? In houses on drugs. Volatile and screaming, yelling. And of course, the one thing that sets them apart, the extreme selfishness. Everything is about them and feeling sorry for them feeling sorry for themselves. They even want you to feel sorry for them when they do something wrong to you. Meanwhile, they're going to run around and slander your name to everybody anyway. Then you got Hollywood giving you false narratives about autism. Look at the autistic characters that are written. Look at Sheldon Cooper. He's a fucking idiot. Just because we're highly intelligent doesn't mean that we're fucking retarded. Sheldon Cooper was a horribly written character. There's parts of his character that are great. There's also others that play too much on bias against autistic people and paint us all in a way that is untrue. And then we've got Maddie Ziegler. That movie isn't even about the autistic person. Just like with Autism Speaks, they don't care about autistic people. They care about the families that are abusing us. They care about curing us. There's nothing wrong with us. What's wrong is how you treat us, how you abuse us, how you insist that we be drugged for something that does not hurt you. You're creeped out by me having Tourette syndrome? I was fucking born with it, asshole! Get the fuck over it! Stop making us go in alone when you know we're just going to get talked over. And how do you know that we're just going to get talked over? Because you talk over us. You let us know every time you talk over us how unimportant we are to you. When you're too busy pretending like somebody who's gone through 6 years of this hell is too retarded to look up something on Google that you looked up in 5 minutes. You're a special kind of fucking stupid, aren't you? Why do you neurotypicals do this? Because you are all natural born liars. The people who would do the most to help you, the most compassionate people, are autistic. The people who have the most emotional understanding are autistic. %14 of autistic people have hyperlexia. About 90% of all hyperlexia cases are autistic people. You know what hyperlexia is? That's when, for example, you have an 8th grade spelling level and a college reading level at the age of 6. Yeah, I have hyperlexia. Or at least I did back then. Back then, though, that was the one thing that it was okay for me to be, was smart. Oh, we got a smart kid. We got a smart kid. Well, then when you're a smart kid, people expect you to magically know things. Things you have to tell the other kids. You go, oh, well, I don't have to tell that kid because he's going to figure it out on his own. Yeah, he is going to figure it out on his own. In many cases, we observe and we learn not to do stupid shit by watching you do stupid shit. How do you treat Tourette syndrome? You drug us with medications that'll kill us, literally. Tourette syndrome hurts no one. But you see a bald person, that makes them a bit creepier, huh? A beard makes them even more creepy. When they do this with their wrists, that makes them even creepier. Oh, what if they do this with their eyes? That makes them even creepier. What if he's homeless and dirty and dingy? That's even creepier. Meanwhile, you victimize us into creepiness. You tell us to go places for help that doesn't exist there. We go to mandated reporters that also have other services, and all they want to do is pawn us on to the other services. They absolutely refuse to do their jobs as mandated reporters. The mental health people say that I have to go to the physical disability place to turn stuff in. The physical disability place says I got to go to the mental disability place to turn it in. Neither one of them are going to do their jobs for an autistic person. We have to depend on a neurotypical to give a shit about us. The same as BLM had to depend on a bunch of white women to stand in front of them so they wouldn't get shot. Except we're more likely to get shot. You pretend that we're on drugs. And because you pretend that we're on drugs, it magically makes it okay to pull out your tasers and zap us to death. Or to shoot us in the head. See, the cops will take a shooter down, in most cases, just try to take him in. But if you're an autistic person, it's a different story, it's a different scenario. It's not something that's going to have as high a scrutiny, especially if you're homeless. When people see somebody with Down syndrome out on the street, they feel bad for them. And they help connect them with services that actually help them. And the police treat them like they rightly should, like that person is a victim. When it's somebody who's autistic, you pretend that it's our fault that we chose it. Because there's no visual markers, it's okay to harm us, it's okay to shoot us. It's okay to murder us. And you're not going to care because we're not Gabby Petito, we're not Brian Laundrie. There was one chance in my life where I ever had a chance to actually get heard, and that wasn't until after Natalie was dead. But you also get to see how everybody in my life did everything they could to help prevent me from being able to communicate. Their ideas to help me did not include actually listening. When I have to do stuff with electronic evidence, I actually have to have access to somewhere where I can actually utilize my electronics in order to do that. If I'm required to send it over the internet, I have to have actual internet access to do that. And I also, if I'm required to carry a bunch of stuff in and out of buildings all the time, then I actually have to have the physical ability to do that. In order for me to run around to all these services that are supposed to be mandated reporters who are supposed to help me, I have to spend money on gas. In order to make these calls, I have to keep my phone up to date. In order to try to do that stuff from inside of my car, I have to make sure that my phone is able to do a lot of that internet stuff by itself. I also have to eat up a lot of gas trying to keep my electronics charged so that I can try to do things in my vehicle. Not that it matters. Your treatment for autism and your treatment for Tourette syndrome is, oh, well, here's some drugs. Your idea of helping somebody who has been abused to the point that they want their life to end is for you to take them on a 72-hour hold, discredit them, and then release them right back onto the streets where they were just victimized. And now they're just a little bit more likely to be victimized, or a lot more. And that's all you have to do. Go out of your way to discredit them. You force me to go to my predators to try to get help, and guess what? Neglect is abuse. Especially by mandated reporters. And all of these mandated reporters here know exactly what they're doing. The police knew exactly what they were doing when they were running to tell me that I don't get to make a written report. It's a small town, so they don't do it that way. I tell them and they write it down, but what do they write down? How much do they write down? The police, ignoring the crimes committed by Waylon Lolatai, Officer Herr, and Officer Vanderleest. They did the same thing to a lot of other homeless people, but you know what? Out of all the homeless people they did it to, how many of them had it recorded? How many of them had a friend or family member who was recording it? Sammy Leon Lawrence IV was recording abuse against homeless individuals when he was targeted by Officer Waylon Lolatai, same officer who assaulted me at the Boulder County Hospital. Meanwhile, they were able to keep all of their crimes out of the public and away from the public by denying me access to my funding, denying me access to paperwork, denying me access to safely turn in my predators, lying to me about how to go about getting that evidence. And meanwhile, they get away with it by calling me mentally ill, and because you never went in with me. You never made the calls with me. You wanted to send me off to someone else, and all of you do this. Make the call with me, you piece of shit, and be informed. That means you actually have to, well, listen for once in your life, and that's not how you treat us. You treat us like we're retarded, and you know better than us about everything in our lives that you weren't even there for. What kind of a friend or family member are you really? You're not. You treat us horribly. Your solution for people bullying me is to drug me. You're a fucking moron. Your idea is always for me to move. You don't stop to look at how expensive it is to move, or how long it takes when you have to try to do all of those things on $800, and you still have to use that $800 to live on. $800 is not enough to live on anywhere in the country.